Luke 12, starting in verse 13. And the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you? And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.'" Something about these parables lately, they hit kind of hard, don't they? Jesus doesn't mess around too much, does he? Today's sermon is entitled Contentment. And I know Carmel was appreciative of that when she called this week for the sermon title. One word. The focus for us this morning is to see that there are many barriers that lie in the path of the disciple. Many. But when you really think about it, there are really just a few major obstacles that we all face in a lifetime of living for Christ. And today we're going to talk about the difference between contentment and covetousness. What it means to covet and what it means to be content. Just the other day I was reflecting, I was praying, I was thinking about how in that moment I felt this huge surge of contentment as I was praying. And there was a peace that came over me. There was a joy that filled my heart. When my mind was clear, God was just like with me. You ever felt that moment? It's fleeting, but that peace and that joy that He brings to you. And then I started hearing Carly and Kate crying and yelling at each other because one of them hit the other one. And all that bliss was gone in a matter of just moments. But in the middle of it, it was beautiful, but I had to get back to reality, and that was my children. I think Jesus lays out for His followers some general guidelines to a life of real contentment. Anybody like contentment? Not a life devoid of problems, didn't promise that. Not a life without any worries or suffering. No, He doesn't offer that, but He does offer genuine happiness and joy and a large dose of contentment if you follow Him. Now this story is pretty interesting because apparently this guy, this large, huge group of people, makes his way to the front. He's standing right next to Jesus. He gets one shot to talk to Jesus. And what does he ask? Think about that for a moment. What does he ask? He asks that Jesus would help him settle an inheritance issue. Really? That's the one thing you're going to ask Jesus, is about how to divide up an inheritance. It just baffled my mind. But then I thought, how many times have I come to the Lord and brought up similar conversations, topics, subjects? I'm guilty, just like this man, of not bringing up things that are very necessary, things that are trivial. Now let me say this. Rabbis in the day would settle these kinds of disputes, so his question is not abnormal. But Jesus isn't really a normal rabbi, is He? And as usual, our Lord tells a parable in response to this man. Now remember, just a few verses before this story of the parable of the rich man, Jesus has been talking about obstacles in the path of the disciple. And one of those obstacles is if you fear man over God, That's a big obstacle. That's a barrier to living a joyful Christian life. And he essentially says this: don't ever fear man who can just take this body, but fear God who has the authority to send your soul to hell. That's the context here. And that's pretty heavy. Everybody breathe out. It's okay. You know Jesus, you're good. At the heart of Jesus' response is this: there is a great danger in placing one's trust in possessions. What is this man? He just heard Jesus talk about these barriers. He just heard about him talk about hell. And what is top of mind for this man? My brother is not dividing the inheritance fairly. So I'm going to go talk to this spiritual leader, this rabbi, and help him, ask him to help me settle this issue. Jesus says in big, bold letters, be on your guard. Specifically, be on your guard not just against money, but against any kind of greed in this life. Anything that you're greedy for, apart from Christ, he says, be on your guard. Don't go there. Now think about this. The desire to have more is really the definition of covetousness. When your neighbor pulls in, they got that shiny new 2017. Are they out yet? I think. You're looking back at your old car. You just put $3,000 in the transmission, maybe. Paid off, but still old. Breaking down. There's a shiny new. Oh my gosh, it looks great. I love that new car. That's covetousness. In that moment, you're coveting. You know, coveting made the top 10 in the 10 Commandments? You think it's a big deal for God? You know, that 2017 has heated seats. Think about that, heated seats. I can warm my buns. I can put a muffin on the other seat and warm my muffin up on the way to work. I mean, why not? I gotta take this plunge. This is great. It's going to throw me in all sorts of debt, all kinds of financial issues, but heck, it's got heated seats. You know, you need that Florida. Here's what greed does. It creates a distortion about what life is. Because the definition of life is never found in objects, possessions. The definition of life is found in relationships. A relationship to God and a relationship to your neighbor. That's the definition of life. That's why you're here. You ever see that bumper sticker? He in the end who has the most toys wins. You know where that? There's only one place they sell that bumper sticker. America. Nowhere else in the world do you see that sticker. You haven't been keeping up with politics lately. Maybe you have too. I don't know. Maybe a debate or two or something. I don't know. Maybe a couple articles. I probably read too much about it. But here's the one thing. The glaring, it's so big, it's so obvious that most people miss it from these two candidates. There is zero lack. Okay? There's just this tremendous void in both of them of humility. You notice that? Just pride permeates everything they say and they talk about. And it's about accumulation of things, and it's about power, and it's about money, and it's about backdoor deals, and it's about just imagine a presidential candidate who stood up and said, "Listen." And maybe there's a guy or a woman out there. They get up and they just say, "Look, you know, I don't have a lot. I don't really want a lot. But what I do want to do is serve you and help you with your life and better you."
I don't think we
down and sign up. You don't want to
We'll vote for
be
you.
president and pastor. Fly Air Force One into Tampa. See you guys later. Probably have to hire Bo to be the Wednesday night prayer meeting. I may be overseas working a deal with Putin or something.
What video you in?
This parable centers on one man who had a very productive land. And the harvest this year is exceptional. It's otherworldly. God has blessed him abundantly. Now, look, now notice there's no hint of cheating, avarice, immorality involved. He just stumbles into a large sum of money, doesn't he? He comes by it honestly. And that's okay. And everything is okay up to a point. But now the man has a dilemma. Where am I going to store all these crops? This is where the wheels start to come of the wagon for this man's fortune. If you pay simple attention to this passage, to this parable, you can see it. Jesus uses the Greek word mu a couple different times. My fruit, my barn, my goods, my soul. The language suggests exclusive self-interest. This man is concerned about one person in the whole world. Himself. That's it. It's all about him. Now, he's a smart businessman, is he not? He plans effectively. He's good at what he does. And notice Jesus isn't condemning any of that. He has plans for bigger barns and architectural, all of that. But verse 19, now I can sit back, relax, take my leisure, drink a margarita, chill. Some good Mexican food with that. He commits himself, listen to this, to a total life of leisure, self-indulgence. This man has, listen to me, morally, he has mismanaged his fortune. Morally. Why? Because he has given no thought to the needs of others, or even an inkling of thanksgiving to the one who blessed him abundantly. No regard. I remember a couple years back, you may have saw this on 60 Minutes, there was a very, very wealthy couple, and they decided what they were going to do with their wealth was they were going to travel all around the world, find out where there were needs of an orphanage, and build orphanages all around the world. And that's what they do. That's how they use their money. They travel around the world and they make sure these orphanages are doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's how they're spending their wealth. What are they thinking about? They're thinking about others. They're thinking about their neighbor in the form of a little child who has no mom or dad. Do you think God smiles upon that couple? Big smile for that couple. And the man in the parable heard about his newfound wealth. And that's when the real work should have started for him. Along with building new barns, there's nothing wrong with that. Investing in the stock market, building up his 401k. But he left out a tremendous opportunity to take the abundance of his wealth and to use it to impact his community for good. That's where he missed it. He really had a moral responsibility to help those around him that have very little. To take care of the needs of others. Now listen to me, church. This is true for every disciple who's ever walked on the earth, whether God has blessed you abundantly with finances or not. He desires that you reach out to those around you that have needs, and you help meet those needs. Now, Some can do more, some than others. That's not the point. The point is, for God and you and those in need around you, is to do something. Something is better than nothing. But you say, I have so little. Doesn't matter to God. The point with God is not how much you have. That's not the point at all. The point is, are you doing something to meet the needs of those around you? That's a pretty cool thing about God, isn't it? I remember, I think I told you the story before, Dawson Trotman is the founder of Navigators. He was at a missions conference, and this little teeny tiny Asian girl got up and talked about the mission work she's doing in China. They were so impressed that he looked at his table of Navigator staff around him, and he said, write down a number of how much you think we should make a check to her work in China. So they all wrote down the number. Put it face down. He collected all the paper. He looked at all of it and he goes, add up all of this together and write a check. The total of all of it. You see, Trotman never ever thought about just himself and his own ministry. He always had a bigger, greater, worldwide perspective in terms of what God had called him to do. I really like that. This man thinks he has the last say, doesn't he? Man, this is going to be good. I'm swimming in money. This is going to be good. And then those fateful words. Who has the last word? God. And it says, but God. You see, this guy, he had his plans. But God also has his plans. And one supersedes the other. In case you forgot. He's sovereign. We're not. It's rather chilling when you think about that. Because a sovereign call went forth. And when a sovereign king calls forth a human soul, that's it. Whatever plans you have here, whatever scheming, whatever designs, whatever you want to do is gone. Is left for someone else. Because when he calls forth a soul, it comes forth. He's in control of all things, including death. So the Lord demands an account of this man's mortal soul, and guess what? His brains and wealth cannot pay that debt. On earth it could, but not before the living God. And there's still one lingering question. Who will possess the things that he's prepared for himself? And the point of the question is pretty simple. The one person who won't enjoy it is him. He now has more pressing eternal concerns to deal with, does he not? You see, riches may be enjoyable for a short time, and they are. I mean, I remember jogging just a couple months ago, and I found $5 on the ground. I was so excited. It was enjoyable. I was looking around. Neighborhood kid's going to pick it up. I'll take it. Go give my kids a yogurt or a ice cream or some grapes or something. And think about this. In eternity, riches do not exist. They don't exist. So that's why they're so short-lived and they're fleeting. Because they don't last forever, do they? And Jesus is saying, don't store up treasures on earth. Be rich with treasures. Be rich toward God. And His will for your life. His love for you. And His desire that you love your neighbor. Listen to me. This parable is not condemning wealth. Please don't misunderstand me. Okay? You stumble into some money, and inheritance comes down, and boom, you're rich overnight, or your business just blows up, and God blesses you. That's awesome. It's what you do with it after you receive it. That's the issue. Are you going to use it for God and His purposes and helping others or not? That's where this man failed. You see, the person who relies upon God has the true wealth of life, does he not? The truly wealthy in this country are not the billionaires. They're not the millionaires. They're the people who trust in the Lord with all all their life. The people who aren't running around scurrying, trying to find another dollar, but are content and trust that the Father's going to take care of them. Those are the true wealthy people who live in this world. And that is what America must take notice of. The comfort that comes from wealth and the power derived from materialism provide only a fleeting and false security. Because every billionaire, every millionaire, and this isn't a sermon against the wealthy. I'm just saying, the wealthy tend to lean towards comfort and leisure. And they take their fill because they can. But one day their soul will be called forth. One day their soul will be called forth, and they will have to give an account. And this is where the biggest problem for the health, wealth, gospel preachers lies. Namely, Jesus and what he says. That's their problem. Is that a pretty big problem if you're a preacher on television? Seems like it'd be huge, but they just pour, people just give and give. And remember the one guy, I don't even want to get started, who was trying to raise $80 million so he could buy a plane and travel? I'm not even kidding you. Are you serious? I mean, there has to be a separate chamber in hell for those people. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that in a mean way. Did you know there are 800 passages in the Old and New Testaments regarding wealth? This passage, by the way, I think is the only one based around retirement. Because you think about it, he's retiring. He's got his wealth. 25% of the time, Jesus is talking about money. Did you hear that? When he opened his mouth, every fourth conversation regarded money. Do you think it's a big deal for God? You know why he talks so much about money? Because money does something really weird to the human heart. When money and the human heart get together, weird stuff happens. Crazy stuff. Stuff you never even dreamed of before. I remember I was in the United States Air Force in Northern California. I was driving to a gas station to get a soda. And I walked in there and I just got paid. And you know what I decided to do for the first time in my life and the last? Buy a lottery ticket. And I just become a Christian. And I'm buying this ticket. And I thought to myself, why am I buying this lottery ticket? Why am I handing this dollar over for these pieces of paper? What am I doing? What's the point of this? Yeah, I did hope I could win. It wasn't that much. Here in first class. They don't make it very much. Listen to this. The big difference between worshiping God with your wealth versus worshiping your wealth. There's a huge difference between the two. You can worship God with the money that he gives you to be a good steward over. Can you not? But the temptation is to begin to worship your wealth. That's the failure. So as we close today, let me ask you this question. How are you doing with your finances? You know what the average American right now, how much credit card debt the average American has? I think it's like $8,500. That's the average. If you go to college, talk to a former college student, don't even $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more in college loans. And here's another question. Are you using God's resources for God's purposes and helping others? Doesn't mean you take your whole paycheck and say, God, here it is. But you take part of it and you say, God, this is for you. Oh yeah, by the way, my neighbor has this problem. I can help him. I can't pay for the whole thing, but I can give him a little bit of help towards. Let me tell you how I grew up. Nobody had a budget in my family. They went paycheck to paycheck, always borrowing money. I mean, all these family members. This is the life I lived. I was kind of on the poorer side of the track of life growing up. So what did little Jeremy see? He saw how people used their finances. So I remember when I got my first job, my parents were divorcing, I needed money for video games, movies, and pizza. And I wasn't, the money truck did not stop at my house anymore. The tree had been cut down, the money tree. I needed some moolah, dinero. So guess what I did? I marched down to the country club. I knocked on the door. I knew the manager, mean lady. And I said, can I have the job? Can you hire me? I'm 12 years old. She said, every Friday, every Saturday morning and Sunday night, you come sweep and mop after the parties the nights before. I said, I'll do it. Started getting a paycheck. Woo! And guess who I thought about with that paycheck? Me! Me and only me! And I was gaining a little weight, so much pizza, popcorn at the movie theater. I'm kidding. I've always been skinny. But because I had really bad models around me, I ran into a lot of trouble. And this is what happened. Right before Dana and I started working, I lost my job at a church. And I took an assistant manager job at a movie theater in Fort Worth, Texas. And guess what? They pay those guys about $8.50 an hour. It was terrible. So I'm not making much money. I got behind on bills. Bills started accumulating. I was about $6,000 in credit card debt. And I just started dating Dana. And I felt so much shame. Because we're kind of moving along, and I'm thinking, is this going to be the one? I don't know. But I knew that I had to go into that whole arena of marriage debt-free, or I wanted to be. So I worked really hard. Got a consolidated debt program, worked hard, and guess what? Paid it all off. So when we got married, I was debt-free. Woo! Dana comes from the other side of the track. She has no idea what that means, to live the way I live. But it was a joy for me to be debt-free. And then what Dana and I do is we have a budget. It's not to the penny kind of budget. It's ballpark, but it's a budget. We know basically what we can spend. And here's the other thing we try to do is we try to throw a little bit of money into a pot to help those in need. So that when issues arise, problems arise, needs come up, we have a little bit that we can help people with. And I would suggest you do the same. Now for the next couple of weeks, guess what we're going to do? We're going to talk about money. Now listen, I grew up in the Southern Baptist world. Every sermon I heard was this: God wants you to give. You're not giving enough. So get off your buns and start writing more checks. That's what I heard. So there was guilt, shame, it was terrible. So here's what I want to do. I want to talk about money from a positive, joyful, cheerful perspective. Because I think that's what the Bible teaches, by the way. Are you guys ready to do that? Come on, let's see some enthusiasm. We've got to talk about cash. Talk about money, what God can do. So as we close, here's what I want you to think about. Are you content with where God has you, what He's provided you with, and you find comfort in that? Or are you over here a lot of times? Wish I had more, wish I had this, wish I had that. You're in that ballpark. I want more. Listen, let me tell you, contentment is one of the richest treasures you can receive in this life. Contentment. Being content with where you're at. Doesn't mean you don't work hard. Doesn't mean you don't climb the ladder. Doesn't mean you don't do things to become successful. Jesus isn't talking about that. He's just saying, right where you are, what God has blessed you with, are you content with Him? That's really what we need to pray about today. Are you rich towards God, not rich with possessions? So as we pray, I want you to think about that. And I'd love to pray with you. If you want to come down, you can pray in your seat. Talk to Him about your contentment level. Maybe you're a 1 or a 2. You're not doing too well. He wants you to be an 8 or a 9 or a 10. He wants you to be Father to you. And He loves you, and He's going to take care of you. Don't let wealth get in the way and derail you from the path of walking with Him, which is so easily done, especially in a culture like ours that has so much affluence. We don't even know how to spell the word covet because there's so much of it going around in our country. So let's pray. Father, right now we come to you. We recognize all of us in this room have coveted. We covet. We will covet. But Lord, I pray that the tide would turn towards contentment. That we would be satisfied with you and all that you provided us for. And with that provision, we would dedicate a portion to you in your work in this world, in this church, in this area, in Haiti, where there's needs, we can meet them. And Lord, we would dedicate, thank you for your provision, but we'd also recognize the needs of those around us, family, friends, neighbors, whoever it may be, co-workers, those around us who need help. And imagine in a world of so much, us following you and your guidelines for material things, we would stand out like a sore thumb. Yet, Lord, we look just like everybody else most of the time. The Christian church in America. So would you convict our hearts and would you push us in the direction of being really sensitive about this money thing and lining up our lives,